Hi, I'm what I whisper to my own sleep paralysis demon. My name is Nate, and
And
I'm with,
I'm Joy. What just happened?
I don't know, and welcome to the studio.
Welcome.
Yo,
Rush of ideas and just imagination and chaos. You make things, you break things in the span of seconds just with your thoughts.
kinesthetic style, but only within the mind.
Take a whole idea and deconstruct it and then rebuild it in a completely different way.
Swimming in chaos.
Welcome to
I
Just
can't
Even
with
myself.
right
now.
Let's go.
So yeah, stress. I do love high intensity places. I actually used to work when I used to work as a barista, I was the kind of person where take me to the busiest time. I'd rather have the busy. As much as I don't mind the cleaning portion, like closing shift, whatever, but it's not always the best use of my energy or who I am as a person. Like put me in a busy situation because I would thrive.
Well, you thrive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
why
the
would you
word.
put a person who is very, very extroverted into a place where only 3 customers come in every 3
Right,
hours? That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense too. Cause for me, I have different types of jobs on campus, right? So I TA for labs sometimes, or I'm a grader for exams. So obviously where it works better for me is me TAing a class because I'm interacting. When I'm grading, I'm just but when you're interacting with the students, there's this stress of am I teaching them the right thing? Did I prepare enough? And I don't necessarily get stressed, but I I don't think, maybe it's not that I don't feel stressed, but I see it as a thrill. It's not a
There we go. Yeah.
stress. It's I feel the excitement. I feel, okay, I
We reframe it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, there we go. It's
yeah,
7.
right?
It's
We
7.
take it, we transform it because I feel like a lot of folks kind of just sit with the stress and then they kind of stop deer in a headlight situation and you're like,
I don't
why?
think I ever freeze up. As far as situations go, if I guess the only times I freeze up is when someone attacks my FI without me.
When it's emotional, I freeze up.
But when it's FI without my TE preparing for it. So like I've said, that's why I worked really hard to try to use my TE to never get stuck in that situation. But if it's not emotional, if it's not emotional, then I won't.
Exactly. It's just, gosh. I think I've had, the most situations, anything that has to do with intimacy, I kind of freeze up. Usually I tell myself that just ignore it. And I don't know if other people would, this is why I don't tell the folks who are good at intimacy what I'm going through because they almost think of it as being shallow. But by choosing to ignore it, I'm actually way more likely to be more relaxed and, right? More likely to be able to take whatever it is they're going to throw at me versus me preparing
That's
prior
fair.
or being okay, well,
that's interesting because for me, for those emotional things, I usually do prepare extensively. But if it's an intellectual thing for me, I usually don't prepare. I'm an ENTP. We're known for winging presentations and doing perfectly fine on them.
Well, here's the thing though. I'm down with the talk. When someone goes, "Hey, we should talk," I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." I'm okay, and I find that fun because that's the TE of me. You put it on the table, so we're gonna discuss it.
That's
right? You get to tell me where you found me wrong and I get to tell you back. That's very easy. But when you have to enjoy it, who enjoys it? The heck?
I don't
People
know, man.
enjoy things?
Well, okay, I like to talk to my friends and open up to them, but I never about our relationship. I don't want to open up to someone about my relationship with them, how I feel about them or how I feel about myself or how they feel about themselves. But I'm down to talk about anyone else. So I could talk about my relationship with someone with someone else, which comes across as gossiping, which is why I don't do it much anyway.
Gotcha.
Or I try not to. Sometimes I do with you because I know you get it.
I get it, but I mean, maybe because I'm a FI, I don't mind having those situations, where I get, because I like to tell people that, randomly, I'll be like, oh, I like our relationships like this or something. But then at the end of the day, it's not something you should expect from me because I don't do it enough.
Right.
I do it for what I could perceive as the best moment, which is kind of off once in a blue moon, because I'm coming from the part where value increases when the demand is higher, when supply is lower, right? So if by not saying it frequently enough, it makes it that much more valuable when I do say it. So no problem.
So do you find it ingenuine or less meaningful when someone tells you often how much you mean to them?
Not necessarily if I know.
Does it only apply to you? Oh, okay. So
if I know they're the type of person, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be their their cognitive type. It could just be like a trait that they have or a tick, like an emotional tick, that they just tend to do that. And that's okay with me because if I am aware of it, I can give them the extra arm, like be accepting.
Okay, like my INTJ friend, she loves to tell me like, hey, like I love you, or like, hey, like, you know, she loves to like be kind to me and be nice to me. And for me, I don't think it like inflates it. It's not like it means less to me just because she does it often.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had a single doubt that like, if I had a doubt that like she didn't mean it, then none of it would mean anything. You know what I mean? But I know that like she's very like, she means it, which is like why it matters, I guess.
Which is kind of funny you mentioned it's an INTJ. My best friend, an ESFJ, we actually don't compliment each other that often.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of interesting because I don't know if people assume that FE DOMs are just suddenly going to start telling people stuff. They're way better at criticizing than it is complimenting.
Right. It's because the TI is there, you know? Like the TI loves to just
maybe
be
it's
like,
the lower, because the lower the TI, the higher the FE. They're like, well, we're already close, so I don't really need to compliment you.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I do it too. Like maybe because like when I know, but then I'm a little bit different because if we're close, I kind of like to learn everything about you so that I could stab you with the emotional knife and twist it every now and
That's
then.
fair.
Because it's kind of fun. I mean, it is kind of. But I mean, I don't intend to kill you. It's just.
Well, okay. So I had this interesting interaction thing, right? Okay, so yeah, things you shouldn't say out loud.
Things we shouldn't say out loud, but here we are anyway.
Yeah, like, okay, so for me, like, if I'm really close to someone, I will try really hard not to use them because as an ENTP, I've gotten over the years from a lot of close friends where the friendship ends and they're like, it's because you're manipulative or because you're like, you know, like.
You've been told that?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
like,
delish.
Well,
intrigued.
Yeah, they've been like, you're manipulative, you're narcissistic, I know, you're like, you know, like, etc., right? Like, but for some of them, it was true. And for some of them, it was, I'm very confident, and it made them feel really bad about themselves. And that's not my fault, that's their fault, right? So on some levels, I understood. So I understood a lot of the aspects of like what parts of it I could actually work on and what parts of it was them projecting, right? So I worked through that. But then basically, so with my close friends that I have now, I try really hard not to be manipulative because I know that I tend to go towards that, right? Automatically. I automatically tend to go, especially as an SP DOM, I tend to go towards like manipulation. I have FE, you know, like I have polar FI, like ENTPs are known to be like sociopathic, right? So like knowing that.
I'm just like nodding, like, yeah, totally. All of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like, you know, like knowing that, like then I try really hard not to with my friends, but the moment that I no longer care about that person, then all bets are off, and like I'm like, okay, and like my friend is like, so why don't you just stop talking to them if like they did that to you? I'm like, oh, because now I'm just gonna have fun. Like it's fine. Like there's just no weight to it anymore. And at this point, I could just do whatever I want.
What's crazy is I can definitely relate to a certain extent. Definitely, I can.
Okay,
definitely
interesting.
It's kind of because I think with FI, all I do is produce distance because I have this opinion of myself where your biggest loss is my existence. So by taking myself out of the picture, you lose automatically.
That's a good point.
I kind of have this where, yeah, I'd like to troll, but then there's also that little thing that's tugging at me where it's like, why do you need to waste your time? Maybe because it's my TE. Like, you don't need to waste your time.
Right.
The minute you leave, their life is significantly lessened in value by like 10 to 15%. So it's kind of like, I can't really fully put into it. But at the same time, it's so much more fun to troll.
Well, okay, yeah, so I'm saying, I completely understand what you're saying too. Like, it's like, yeah, like it is like their biggest loss is us, you know, like because we're like, and the thing is we know that, which is why people can't stand it, right? But like us knowing that we're great and knowing that if we leave, like it's their loss actually. But for me, I'm just like, I also know that, but also like sometimes it's fun to just like because you know, like also like especially like ENTPs, we love to play with our NE and FE. That's like where the manipulation comes in. Like, let's try all these different possibilities and see how you react emotionally, right? And it's so much fun. And like, yeah, that's why people think I'm a jerk, and like I kind of am. But you know, like I love doing it, right? But I try really hard not to do it with my friends. Like I make a conscious effort not to. That's
so funny because I don't know if this relate, if you can relate to this, but with FI and NE going on, for me at least, I like manipulating folks and tempting them for their ethical decisions, like whenever they experience ethical dilemmas.
Because you have creative FI. So
I love that. Like I love when we do the whole philosophical thing of like, what are you gonna do if you're gonna let the train hit that one like really big person versus your family? Like, what do you do? Like anything that's remotely related to making you choose between two. Well, okay,
listen. The interesting thing is that FI, when they're deciding something like that, it's like a what do I believe? But then when FE is deciding, it's what will other people think about my decision? right? Because when you said that, immediately my thought was like, let's say my family was watching this video and you asked me that. Obviously, I'd first weigh what would my family think. I wouldn't weigh what do I think and then what do my family think. I first thought what would my family think and then I'd think what do I actually want. So FE I think would go others first.
In that situation, I'm like, my parents or my family already know me for me, so they already know what I decide and they accept that for me already. Like I have family where they're like, we know that when you're onto something that we're gonna have to, like, it just makes more sense because you're consistent with it. Like I'm not gonna change my mind just because of other people in a sense like that. But ethical dilemma.
Well, okay, it's interesting because FI and TI are both consistent. They're just consistent in very different ways, right? Because a lot of people just say that FI isn't, but
isn't that like kind of the most hilarious argument sometimes when the clashes happens to be the feelies, like the feeler functions tend to clash because an FI person such as myself might look at FE and be like, why aren't you being consistent with your convictions or something? But then an FE person could look at me and be like, why aren't you consistent with your logic?
Right.
Like,
So I mean,
you're not
it goes
thinking
both
straight.
ways. But the thing about it is that like it parallels, so that's why like it's interesting. Like it's cool to see, especially here.
The fact that we both troll people, absolutely.
But we do it in different ways for sure, which is what makes it even cooler.
I mean, okay, here's the thing. I don't know if other NFPs can relate to this, but I think a lot of feelers, especially NFs, we have a specific threshold. Like we have a boiling point or a melting point.
Oh my goodness, threshold was in my exam that I just took. Like I literally wrote like threshold. Oh my goodness, I'm getting like I just like astral projected and like saw myself sitting here thinking about action potentials and threshold values and like.
Well.
Do you want to learn about muscle contractions?
Sure.
No. Carry on. It was a joke.
I'm here to learn. It's just see me like put me in a school desk and be like, Miss JC, gonna teach me.
Oh no.
We have a threshold. It differs. It varies with every feeler. I tend to think of myself as having a pretty large threshold, like boiling point to handle certain things because I'm only getting this from the FE kind of external people telling me about this. That's how I'm kind of getting this kind of opinion because a lot of folks have noticed that I can withstand teasing and like, jiving along with jokes from polar FI and let's say TPs in general or TJs even, and I wouldn't even flinch. Sometimes I'm even here for it. Like sometimes I even like make it even go farther than they do. And whereas if you were to compare me to like, which I mean, you don't like to compare people to people, but for the moment of this argument, we're going to compare people to people. If you compare me to other NFPs, you'll notice that like some of them are way too sensitive.
Right.
And that's the thing is not that it's wrong that they're sensitive. I don't really care. It's just that in this particular situation, my threshold is better.
Right.
That makes sense. So it
takes a lot more to get you to get upset
and you know how like
something.
NFPs tend to police how people talk sometimes where they'll be like, oh, you shouldn't say that because it makes me uncomfortable. Well, they wouldn't say it that way. They'll be like, they'll say it in a large conceptual way. Like,
but also
no
FE users would say, so FE users would also police what you say, but in a completely different way.
Well, for them, it's contextual. Of FE. But then with FI, they're like, nobody should treat their friends like it. Because I'm guilty of that too. Been there, done that.
Right.
But at the same time, just kind of like, okay, well, just let it.
Wait, hold up. That was such a good description of just like, I mean, that's how it's described, but I haven't heard it in a while. Just like, FE being more contextual, FI is more, again, consistent, right? Like internally consistent.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Whereas if you were to flip it again, TE is also contextual, whereas TI isn't, right? Like, or TI is more principled, if that makes sense. Right. So it's kind of really cool. I remember this is INFJ who was asking me about it because like I've always thought of TE as more contextual than FE. I'm like, I haven't I didn't get a chance to reply. She's watching. I'm sorry. Sorry to this girl.
You have some time before this airs to reply, so hopefully you do it.
We'll survive.
Oh no.
But basically, I do agree with it because the switch is still there. The objective, external, extroverted functions are way more contextual than the internal one. Whereas the internal one tends to be more principled. Maybe that's just the conclusion I want to bring out for that, right?
So what do you think about in regards to like the perceiving functions?
Oh, like NE versus SE?
I guess,
SI,
yeah.
And NI? I would say it's a different ball game for them because
I was kind of thinking that too.
Right? Because we're not judging. We're gathering
as far as like perceiving functions go, I think like the judging functions obviously like everything is on an axis, but like it's interesting because for the perceiving ones, it's especially like they're so interconnected because like for us to do anything SI, we need our NE. For us to do anything NE, we also need our SI. And then same with SE and NI, you need the other two. And yes, you also do for like judging functions, but you could more immediately do something with the judging functions before like talking to the other one. You know, like I could immediately do something with my TI without conferring with my FE. But for my NE, it kind of is already interconnected more so with my SI already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, if I didn't put SI needs first, I would not be where I am now. So
yeah. I mean, I think we both relate on that level also of just like, you know, we both have inferior SI. We probably, I'm assuming you also struggled through it, you know, throughout many of your years, right? Struggling through figuring out how to make SI work for you. And especially as SP DOMs, we want that security. We want that stability, but it's like hard because we're NE DOMs. Right. But I think we both like found like a really good like balance. I mean, obviously our lives are kind of burning dumpster fires to a certain extent still, but you know, like it's like it works for us, you know, like we're both responsible, surprisingly.
I mean, yeah.
I laughed, but yeah.
No, yeah. Because I think the funniest part about it is, I mean, at least I know with myself, I look like I'm not responsible, but then turn off the light or turn off the airing and I'm actually doing stuff.
Right.
Right. So it's really a matter of, I don't know, like I'm kind of the person where it's just, I'm losing my train of thought here, but if people were to judge us based only on what we put on the table, then you're going to miss the entire entity. Like you're going to miss the entire personality of the person. Because you're only looking at what you see, which there are arguments for that where you only, you know, where reality can only be objectively, you know, considered once it's out there. But because of the fact that we have introverted functions, that means there's a whole world out there of us that isn't seen from people.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So it's like,
yeah.
I mean, granted, my TE is lower than, you know, things, but that doesn't mean I can't bring it out or something like that. I don't know. Just,
right. Well, I mean, it's interesting.
You get what I'm going.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm saying like it would be interesting to see as we keep making these videos because I know at least initially probably my NEFE and your NETE are going to be what's going to be bouncing back and forth for a long time until later on we'll tap into FI and TI. I'm assuming more so.
I hope so too, because we definitely should tackle on some ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, because that would be fun. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind tackling a logical dilemma, even if I'm polar TI, because I'd like to test it. Usually, I mean, remember what we talked about? Like, my TE is motivated by money, so. So if you throw me a logical puzzle, be like, here's $10.
My FE is also like motivated by money, right? It's like I want to help people if it earns me money, right? Like that's how I FE.
You're at a party and someone's like dangling at $5. He's like, go make a friend. You're like, oh yeah.
He's like, who wants to be my friend? Yeah, I'll be friends with everyone if it'll make me rich. Like.
Oh man, yeah. Okay. With that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I can see that happening.
Okay. Anyway, so let's start to like close up this video because I think we've been talking for a hot minute. So
any last closing thoughts on stress? Oh, how about this? People to take away from this video, how they can manage their stress.
Well, okay, as a TI user, I rationalize everything, right? So it's usually just like I'm a 3 also. So usually what I end up doing is like thinking like, does stressing about this benefit me in any way, shape, or form?
Yes.
So, okay, so there's a bell curve for stress. Okay, so I love doing like these kind of things because I'm a TI user, right? So like, so essentially if you're not stressed at all for something, then, okay, so this axis is your productivity and this axis is stress, right? So if you have no stress at all, then your productivity is down here. As you get a little more stressed, you get more productive. But then once you get too stressed, then you get less productive. So you want to be at that healthy medium where you're just stressed enough to be productive, but not so stressed that you don't do anything.
Well, a big part of that is making sure you're not adding on to stress, right? A lot of it is also compartmentalizing your life. Because, for example, if you haven't paid your bills on time and you've been waiting on it because you're busy doing something else, why not? It's just a quick, go to your online banking thing, fix that bill.
Well, like that thing that everyone says. It's the thing that everyone says, right? Like, oh, that thing I put off for 5 months took me 10 minutes. And I'm like,
because it will only take 10 minutes.
Right.
That's
so
the truth.
Once I learned that, I'm like, I don't really put that many things off anymore. And it's just like, I mean, I guess in general, like I don't have a lot of things to stress about at any given time. And I do a lot of stuff. Like I'm a 3. I do a lot of random stuff.
In stress-wise, it's not like there isn't a stressful situation like right now. Sure, we could look. I mean, but that's the thing. It depends on how you look at it. Because at the end of the day, you could not sleep tonight, or you could somehow divide it up in a day and just keep, breathe in, breathe out, make sure everything's working out. Because
I mean, even when I pull all-nighters, it's like I'm not necessarily like stressed throughout my all-nighter. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, like, like this is how it is. I'm studying.
I just want to sleep.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. But also, like, I'm in school right now, so sometimes you can't.
Well, that's fine. That's understandable. For me, it's just I'm very much, if it hits a certain amount of time in the night, I'm more like, I just want to sleep.
Well, okay, something about me, though, is that, like, it's not like, for some people, I think it's like, if they don't sleep, they're very tired, as people normally are. Like, me, I could sleep very little, and I'm still, like, fine. Like, I do completely fine.
Well, I'm actually not the person, like, you know, the people when you can't really wake them up because you could annoy them or something. I'm never that person. Usually you could wake me up and I could wake up smiling.
Me too. I wake up and I'm like, hello. People get freaked out.
Yeah. Like, too, I slept over at a friend's house and then they woke up and they're like, what? You're fine? And I'm going,
they usually think that, like, they usually think that you were already awake, though, don't they? They're like, have you been awake this
but I had a huge
dream. Like,
but do you lucid dream often? Because I do.
I do.
It's great. And I don't know, is that an
I have a
NE
dream
thing or is that an
journal.
NI? Like, is it an intuitive thing? Because
it's an intuitive thing.
I don't have problems at all. Like, when unless, of course, I'm dealing with a loop dream and I get annoyed. Or
I get annoyed when I'm in a dream and well, it's not like, so mine, like, I do sleep paralysis, I get into sleep paralysis sometimes, but sometimes, like, I get annoyed at the dreams where, like, I keep waking up and then I'm like, am I really awake this time? And I'm not. And I'm like, really? Can I just wake up? Like, it's so annoying because I'm like, I have stuff to do.
Channels.
Oh, that's a good
Whenever
one.
I want to get rid of a certain scene.
Okay, we should have an episode on dreams, though.
Okay, fair enough. We need to talk about all of our wildest dreams.
Yes.
Okay, good, because I have stories for that.
I have a dream journal. I literally have, like, pages.
You have a dream journal?
Of course I do. I'm an NF. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but funny, you're the one that journals. I don't journal anything.
My journal is, like, right here. Wow.
That's crazy. Okay, here, for the record, she's a thinker and she journals. I'm a feeler. I don't do none of that.
Wow. So someone's in the wrong here. Probably both of us.
I mean, we're just breaking stereotypes all day, all night.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we do. Anyway, okay, thank you for joining us on this episode on stress management, and all of the other things we also talked about. So we will see you next week on our next video. Goodbye.
Bye.